When I fall in love, it will be forever, or I'll never fall in love. In this restless world like this is, love has ended before it's begun, and too many moonlight kisses seem to cool in the warmth of the sun. When I give my heart, it will be completely, or I'll never give my heart. And the moment I can feel that you feel that way too is when I fall in love with you. All right, I started that broadcast today with Nat King Cole singing When I Fall in Love. Reason why I love that song, it reminds me of my mom. So with all this racial stuff going on right now, I've had that memory just burn into my into my heart and soul of a young boy when Nat King Cole came to Salt Lake. My mom loved Nat King Cole, played his records all the time, and that's what I grew up with hearing. In fact, maybe a couple of the words I did in there, I kind of sounded like maybe like a little tiny bit like him, because that's how I remember that song. What a wonderful song, and very timely in this restless world we live in. So when Nat King Cole and some other singers came, black performers, into Utah in the 60s, when I was a young boy, I was born in the 50s, but my memory was more in the 60s. And I can't remember the specifics, but something happened where Nat King Cole wasn't allowed to either stay or he had to come in a back way into the Hotel Utah. I don't know. I'm sure there's some history that could be looked up. But I remember one thing. I remember my mom being so upset and so mad. You know those memories you get? I remember when JFK, John F. Kennedy, was shot. My mom bawled and bawled and bawled and wept, and I'll never forget that as a young boy. This was another one of those times where she was so angry that that someone that she just loved to listen to and sing, that because he was of a certain race, he wasn't allowed to stay, or at least a minimum, he wasn't allowed to go about as anyone else was able to, because of his skin color, because of his race. And it really upset my mom. I was too young to understand. I didn't even know the difference between anybody. Everybody was just a person to me, and that's how I was raised. The other memory I have is of my father, who served in the Navy in both the Korean conflict and then before that World War II. So he was in World War II, came home, got married, had 2 kids, and then recalled back for the Korean, what do we call it? A conflict now, the Korean conflict. And I honestly can't remember if it was the Korean War or the or World War II, but my dad, he would get harassed a bit for being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or back then a Mormon. And so, he was kind of picked on a little bit for that, and different a different lifestyle. And it was a fellow soldier. I think he was actually a Marine. Stole my dad's bunk, and thought it would be kind of funny to have it, and took it. And so my dad had a friend who happened to be black and big, and he went to my dad's defense, and this Marine wouldn't give up the bunk, and finally the Marine just had it, and he busted that Marine right in the head with his fist, like right in the forehead, and split it wide open, and blood everywhere. and anyway, my dad and his friend, or this black man, became best friends, and stayed that way even after the Navy, the military years were over. So I grew up in a family where it just wasn't. It was never talked about. It was never an issue. It was talked about in the sense later on when I could understand that, hey, everyone's God's children, and don't judge anybody by their skin color, just their actions. Whether they're good or bad. Then if they're if they're good people or bad people, and that's it. Really never thought much about it. Now, we also had in the church in the 60s and 70s was the Indian placement program, and we had a young man come and stay with us for several years, and he would come during the school year, the 9 months of school, and then go back home in the summer, and he was Apache. So it's interesting in Arizona, New Mexico, southern Utah, parts of Colorado. Anyway, the Southwest. The smallest tribe you have is probably the Zuni, and then the Hopi, and then the Apache, and then the Navajo Nation is the largest. And Keith was Apache, the White River Indian Reservation. So I had that in my background, and I ended up just loving the Indian culture. We have to say Native American now. We have to be so careful. I learned all about the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cree, the Seminole, the Cherokee, the 5 civilized tribes. I learned about the Plains Indians, the mighty Sioux Nation, and the Cheyenne, and then out here we have the Blackfoot, and then the Breakoff, the Gros Ventre Indians, of course the Shoshone, the Bannock. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I learned about a lot of the cultures. I learned about their way of life. I envied it, back in the day, and read all about the Indian Wars, read about Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, the Wounded Knee Massacre, and I learned a lot about Native American culture as well. And then when Sue and I got married and started our family, our second child we chose to adopt, and little Rita was from El Salvador. So we learned about that culture, and I've just never thought of anything about someone's skin color or nationality and thought, oh, they're good or they're bad, or they come with this tendency or they don't. It's just never really been in my mind. And most people I know are the same way. Now, that's not to say that there isn't racism, because there obviously is. But for me, it's frustrating because I get called to repentance in a general sense, and I'm like, I don't feel that. I just don't feel that. I don't. And here's another thing. I would never pretend to understand what any kind of black person goes through in the inner city, in the South, anywhere in the country. I don't know. And they don't know what I go through or what I've gone through. They don't know. Kind of an interesting, it's a tiny example of that. And I might have brought it up before, but, you know, we in the church, we do these pioneer treks, right? And I think I might have mentioned this. So if I have before, I apologize, but maybe it's worth saying again. And I remember getting some blowback as when I was a stake president. We were getting ready to do our pioneer trek, and some people in our stake were saying, we got to make this so real, and so that our these young kids understand what these pioneers went through. And I remember just thinking, that's impossible. That is an impossibility. And it probably would ruin them, you know. And not all of the pioneers went through just super hardships crossing the plains. Some of them, it wasn't so bad. But the ones, the Martin Willie Handcart Company and some of the others, you know, obviously they went through hell. But we can't duplicate that. So let's just give these young people a positive experience, have them reflect on their pioneer heritage if they had it, and think of those people. So virtually never can we know what people are going through, regardless of skin color, regardless of their race, regardless of their economic background. We all kind of walk a different path, and that's by design, in my opinion. So let's stop pretending that we can know ever. You know, it's probably going to be after this life. But here in this life, we can find the things we have in common. And that's what I noticed. So when I did my Native American studies, both just on my own and at the University of Utah, I always like to find things that I had in common, especially in religious beliefs. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of that, the things we had in common. I think that's what we need to do more and more now, is find the things that we have in common and things that we can do together for the future, instead of looking backwards and trying to define all of our differences that we have in our past. So I don't know. I mean, it's just some thoughts I've had, and I'm frankly kind of frustrated with all this, because I don't feel like I'm a racist, but then after a while you start thinking, gosh, maybe I am a racist. And I'm like, no, I'm not a racist. I'm not. And I really don't know anybody that is, personally. You know, I guess I would know of some through news and whatnot, but the people I associate with and know, I'm not aware of any racism in any of them. So maybe I live a sheltered life. Maybe I just choose to not expose myself to other cultures or things, but I think I do, and I try to. So if you guys are feeling some of this frustration too, maybe you'll know what I'm talking about. But I love all of God's children. I get music is a big thing, obviously, for me. I sing songs. I love the 70s music, and I love all kinds of music. And I love Motown. I love. I mean, I even sang the Pointer Sisters a few videos back. Romeo and Juliet, Samson and Delilah. I think the song's called Fire, and I love Motown. I love it all, and I don't really care. It's like food. If there's good Mexican food, I love it. Italian food, I love it. You name it. If it's a good place, I don't care. I'll eat it, and I love it. So, and it's the same with people. I just don't. I'm just not feeling what's being reported, and I'm not feeling that lumping everybody into these categories based on your skin color is a good thing. I don't think that's right. So that's all I had today. No scriptures, no insights that way. Just kind of a frustration that I need to kind of get out there and vent a little bit and reminisce. I had a great childhood and no anything but racism in our family. So I thank my parents for that. And really on our street, I grew up, I never noticed it, never felt it, and I know there's other people that did and have experienced it. And I can't understand that. I didn't go through it. So I'm not going to pretend that I do. But anyway, that's it. You guys all take care. Still haven't worn a mask yet. Here's my theory on masks. Totally unrelated. But unless you're really sick, you obviously your immune system is compromised, and so you don't want to get anything, and you don't want to spread anything. So for that, I totally understand. But if you're not sick, I think our bodies are made to build up immunities, and if we take that ability away by having this like this all the time, and we're breathing our own air, and we're not allowing our bodies to combat and fight off everything that's out there all the time, I think we weaken it. I saw a family the other night at a restaurant, and the mom and the dad, and I think there were 3 kids. It might have been 2, but I think there were 3 kids, and they all had masks on. And I'm like, man, those kids are ruined for life now, because they're going to be so paranoid the rest of their life, thinking they have to wear a mask everywhere. And I'm not buying it. Now, I don't want to be disrespectful. And I'm, if I have to wear one at certain places and certain times, I will. But so far, I haven't had to. I've made the choice not to go to Costco because I heard that they require it, but I think Sam's Club doesn't. So there's a plug for Sam's Club. But anyway, masks, I haven't worn one yet. So if you're frustrated about that, or you feel kind of similar like I do, then those are the 2 things I was kind of thinking about today, was the mask and the racial discontent, just the horrible stuff that's going on. I'm not even going to talk about what's going on in the news and things, because everyone has their own opinion on it, and they think. I just wanted to share my background and my experience with those things. So God bless y'all. Look to Jesus in everything. That's the answer. I posted a video on my YouTube channel of a lady who really spoke the truth, in my opinion. And I think she pointed to Jesus in her comments. And I think that's the one common denominator that we can all focus on, is Christ and what he did for us. And if we do that, then we have much, much, much in common. And it'll bring peace and love and harmony. If we don't focus on him, then it's going to be a lot harder to get along. So with that, we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.